Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. I will give a couple more minutes to allow people to join the call. I'm going. Welcome, everybody. Thank you again for joining us. Hello again, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Huguette Diakabana, and I'd like to welcome you all to Building a Competent Digital Health Workforce, co-organized by WHO and IDARE. Welcome once again to our speakers, our moderators, my co-moderator, Ms. Alice, and our guests. Today, we gather as champions and advocates, practitioners and beneficiaries of digital health efforts to focus on the ongoing initiatives to build the capacity of an ever-expanding digital health workforce. Advances in technology have allowed for the expansion, quality of health services to many who otherwise would be without. However, we must all recognize that technology has only been helpful because of the workforce behind it. This effective workforce is made of people dedicated to ensuring our collective health and well-being. And as the acceptance and adoption of digital health grows, the workforce sustaining it has become a movement as diverse as ever. It is no longer uncommon to hear physicians, nurses, community health workers discussing particulars of digital health technologies, just as computer scientists and social scientists are discussing details of infectious and non-infectious diseases and ways to develop people-centered solutions to address them. Many of us have been fortunate to see digital health practitioners in action in every area, spanning from routine immunization to health emergency programs. We know their value, we're thankful for their dedication, and we celebrate their progress. So while the diversity in the health workforce is allowed to develop solutions that take into account different contexts and reality, it also highlights the need to support and equip this workforce to meet the many challenges they're working to address. Our speakers today are amongst the people dedicated to ensuring that we understand and meet the capacity needs in the most effective, impactful, and sustainable ways. Today with us, we have Dr. Alain Lebric, Director of WHO Digital Health and Innovation Department, Dr. Onyema Adrebor, filling in for Dr. James Campbell, the head of Health Workforce Department at WHO, His Excellency Dr. Kwani Bandar, Chief Executive Officer of Ministry of National Guard Health Affairs in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Dr. Mehdi Sene, Acting CEO of IDARE, and Mr. Derek Muneni. To get us started, I'd like to call Dr. Alain Lebric, Director of WHO Health and Innovation Department. Dr. Alain, the floor is yours. I'd like to remind you to please turn on your camera and unmute your mic and go ahead. Over to you, Dr. Alain.
Thank you so much, Huguette, and welcome everyone. Before I go into my remarks, I want to thank all our special guests who have joined us today at this session, including His Excellency Dr. Kwani Bandar, for kindly accepting to participate in this event. We recently convened a similar event, which included a session on health workforce capacity building, and their leadership is really appreciated in this space. Also, a good thanks to my fellow director, Dr. James Campbell from the Health Workforce Department, who together with his team has been working with us here in Digital Health and Innovation on matters relating to digital health and health workforce capacity building. Unfortunately, Jim can't be with us today due to some scheduling conflicts, but we welcome his delegate. Lastly, I want to thank our colleagues at the International Digital Health and AI Research Collaborative, or IDARE for short, represented here by Dr. Mehdi Snani, acting CEO. And we recently signed an MOU to foster our common agenda, including work on health workforce digital competencies and artificial intelligence. A special thanks to our two moderators, Alice Liu and Huguette Diakabana, and the very many speakers that will participate today, and of course, all of you, our viewers and participants in this session. So, as you are all aware, COVID-19 has really underscored the need for a holistic, all of government, all of society approach to the digital transformation of the health sector. The pandemic has forced countries to accelerate their digital transformation efforts, such that the processes that are needed to become more efficient, to respond to emergencies and critical challenges to our health systems are more efficient and enable to support digital healthcare service delivery, all while maintaining quality of care, patient-centeredness, compliance and security policies, etc. But one thing that brings us here all together today is the recognition that in order to sustain the gains that we have made in the digital transformation that the pandemic has triggered, that all stakeholders need to continue investing in the foundational building blocks that create the enabling environment for digital systems to flourish. And this includes digital health workforce capabilities, as well as the structural, legal, policy environments in countries where these systems are being deployed. With the accelerated growth of digital health, our growing focus has not been on singular digital solutions, but as I just mentioned, the need to build the foundational enabling architecture. And within that, one of the key building blocks is the workforce needed to not just build the foundation, but to run the systems that operate within it. So across health systems, from patients to individuals, to healthcare providers, as well as the designers and operators of digitally enabled health products and systems, we need to consider the skills and training needed to maximize success. We must have clearly defined competencies in order to enable this future workforce to be transformed along with the health systems that they serve. Our contributions here at the World Health Organization are based on the Global Digital Health Strategy, which aspires to improve health for everyone, everywhere, by accelerating the development and adoption of appropriate, accessible, affordable, scalable, and sustainable person-centric digital health solutions that we can prevent and detect and respond to pandemic and emerging epidemics and emergencies, while also guiding member states to developing the infrastructure as well as the applications that will enable countries to use health data to promote health and well-being, to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals in health, as well as the triple billion targets of WHO's 13th General Program of Work. We believe that digital health continues to have the potential to be a major equalizer of health inequalities, leaving no one behind as we move towards this next century. As we look ahead, let's continue to think in terms of positioning health in the digital age while ensuring that we continue to put people first, leaving no one behind. I'm really looking forward to the exciting discussion and presentations today and the key insights that will come out of today's session, part of this Digital Health Week. So thank you all for being with us today. It's our privilege to be hosting you, and we look forward to this and future conversations. Thanks so much. Back to you, Huguette.
Thank you so much, Dr. Labrick, a longtime champion and pioneer in the digital health space. It's good to see you, and thank you for all that you shared. Next, I'd like to call Dr. Onyema Adrebor, Technical Officer at the Health Workforce Department at WHO, to share the remarks on behalf of Dr. James Campbell. Dr. Onyema, over to you.
Good afternoon, colleagues. I hope you can hear me very well. My name is Onyema Adrebor. I'm a technical officer in the Health Workforce Department of the World Health Organization. And today I'm representing the director of the department, Dr. James Campbell, who conveys his deepest apologies for not being able to be present today. He had conflicts in his schedule that he couldn't avoid, and he sends his deepest regrets and also his greetings to the esteemed panelists and the listeners who are here today. In April 2019, the Director General, Dr. Tedros, had this to say during the launch of the Digital Health Interventions Guideline. Harnessing the power of digital technologies is essential for achieving universal health coverage. Ultimately, digital technologies are not ends in themselves. They are vital tools to promote health, keep the world safe, and serve the vulnerable. As powerful as they are, digital technologies are only enablers, requiring the availability of competent users to reap optimal benefits or even prevent harm. The period since the COVID-19 pandemic has particularly been significant for digital health due to the unprecedented upsurge in the use of technologies to educate and train health and care workers, facilitate their administration and management, and to deliver health services. The Health Workforce Department of WHO has been building a library of technical and normative tools and resources to guide health and care worker learning and development and other capacity outcomes to help achieve safe, optimal, effective, equitable, and person-centered health services at all levels of service delivery. On a broader scale, WHO is championing lifelong learning through the WHO Academy with an ambition to reach millions of health and care workers upon its launch in 2024. The Academy will rely heavily on digital tools and platforms to achieve scale and enable continuous learning that incorporates cutting-edge science in the process. This year, we published the Global Competency Framework for Universal Health Coverage, which identifies health worker competencies required to achieve universal health coverage. These competencies are organized within 6 domains: people-centeredness, decision-making, communication, collaboration, evidence-informed practice, and personal conduct. The UHC framework also breaks new ground in furthering understanding whilst unpacking and clarifying fundamental terminologies and principles that should underpin the development of a digital health competency framework. The time to ensure that all health and care workers are fit for purpose and equipped with the competencies to use and benefit from digital technologies is now. WHO will continue to drive the visionary leadership and is ready to facilitate the necessary collaboration to make this happen. I would like to thank colleagues in the Digital Health Department, Director, and other colleagues we have been working with across the organization at the 3 levels, and our partners at IDEA and IntraHealth for all the work that they're doing to make this a reality. I thank you, and I look forward to the rest of the session and hearing the perspective of the other speakers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Onyema. We are thankful that you were able to join us and make sure that we heard about the important work that your department is doing to support the health workforce all over the world. Next, it is my great pleasure to welcome His Excellency Dr. Kwani Bandar, Chief Executive Officer, Ministry of National Guard Health Affairs of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Your Excellency, welcome. I'll move the floor over to you.
Thank you, Huguette. Really pleased to be here today with this esteemed group, and thanks, Alain Labrecque, for really the invitation, and for Derek as well. Truly, it's a pleasure to work on this issue. And as you probably have known that during the G20 summit in year 2020, we held in Saudi Arabia the Digital Health Summit. And it was really at the height of the pandemic. It really highlighted how important that digital health has helped the management of the pandemic in general, and so many of these issues that we have faced during the pandemic. So really this made us all, globally to think more about it, and of course, work together to ensure that this goes along and does not get left behind. I think there's no doubt that every human being now in the digital era has been adjusting in our daily, in all aspects of our daily life. Digitalization of healthcare, specifically starting with the electronic medical record, has changed healthcare workforce roles and responsibilities. And without digital literacy, digital health will not be embraced and implemented. So clearly this has changed the perception and as well the adoption of all healthcare providers towards digital health. Therefore, accelerating global digital health landscape implementation depends on really main two components. Of course, the availability of the infrastructure, and importantly is the competent, skilled workforce, and digital health is quite essential. As well, we need to close the gap for digital health and the digital skills by ensuring that we have availability of education, training, and of course, skilling program and upskilling and reskilling for all of healthcare workforces. As well, we need to work together, to build a global roadmap for digital health workforce of the future. This is in order to sustain the digital health engagement that has been going on, led and championed by actually the WHO, and pleased, recently with the appointment of Alain Labrecque for directing, the Department of Digital Health and Innovation at the WHO. Therefore, we need to make sure that we sustain this movement, and this could be really importantly dealt with by ensuring that health education and all health sciences schools, that the curriculum get taught with digital health in mind. And of course, establishing digital health academies throughout different health institutions are very important. I'm really pleased that globally that many of our healthcare providers are embracing, and their perception about digital health is very strong and very high. We look forward that we work together with the WHO, with the different as well organizers, to make sure that we continue to make this a reality for our patients, for the families, for our public health initiatives, and ensuring that this particular seminar today will ensure that we continue to enrich the environment and of course to enrich the way that we move forward. Without doing so, I think, with the leadership of the WHO, we will not be able to ensure that we innovate healthcare and we develop the newer version of healthcare delivery of the future. I would like to thank the speakers for these and the panels, and of course, people who are participating to ensure that we do the best for our patients and communities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. We all value your leadership and are grateful for all that you're doing to make sure that we keep moving forward. And as we watch from all over the world, we are cheering you on. And next, to keep us going, I'd like to welcome my good friend and colleague, Dr. Mehdi Nsene, Acting CEO of IDARE. Mehdi, over to you.
Thank you so much, Huguette. Dear colleagues, honorable guests, thank you for this invitation. Dear Dr. Alain, thank you for this kind invitation to showcase the work that we are currently conducting together in the building of this capacity and competency framework within the WHO, but also with ADAR for digital health and AI. ADAR is the new kids on the block somehow. It's the International Digital Health and AI Research Collaborative, established by and founded by the former Indian ambassador in Geneva, Dr. Amandeep Gill, who got appointed as UN Tech Envoy recently. I'm taking over him for this interim period. Within ADAR, we have from the beginning a very concrete objectives to enable and to build a trusted platform for the R&D for digital health and AI for healthcare, while addressing these mutual problems that are related to data and AI that no single country or research institution can solve on their own. And I much appreciate Your Excellency, Dr. Bandari, when you talked about the infrastructure. This is an essential piece of our work towards the building of different components within ADAR with the capacity building blocks. So we are addressing the issue of the infrastructure, the capacity, the community, and the governance aspects when it comes to digital health. And we have a very specific focus with WHO on these building pieces of the competency framework and human resources development. But first of all, I'd like to talk about the digital health perceptions as we have received from the different consultations we have been running through our different hubs and partners in the last 2 years. We all almost share the same definition and the common definition of digital and health, and Baro is still lacking a common definition of digital health. Is it the mix? Is it both of them? Is it the overlap? We don't really know for the moment. And it's an essential element that we need today to reunify the different and these fragmented visions that we have and that we are dealing with. Essentially, these different visions are due to the diversity of end users, practitioners, we have healthcare providers, we have standardization organization, we have research from both AI, IT, and clinical science. Most importantly, we have those that we are keep forgetting always, or almost always, patients. So a common understanding cannot be built today without a clear definition of the aim, the goal, and the way of all the knowledge required for such collaborative building. What is the digital health? It's true that the digital health is composed from the digitalization process of data and different process for health and healthcare. This is the case, for example, of the digitalization of health records, where we take care essentially of data, digitalization of workflow, of admission or discharge of patients, where mostly we take care about the process. But also it's true for the expert system and for AI-assisted medical imagery analysis when it's related to the practice. So we need to together build and create our own corpus and knowledge regarding digital health, what is digital health, to overcome this hesitancy, the bottlenecks, and often the change resistance. For example, and then from our experiment and from our early implementation on the ground, how should we benchmark digital health outcomes? This question comes back often to us. Is it based on IT perspective or the healthcare perspective? Is it clear that today it should not be done? It should both be done together, like for security, performance, efficiency, and effectiveness, but not only that. It's not only the sum of these both visions, but we need to have extra roles and the element that should be taken into consideration if they arise from the ground while we are implementing the interventions or the digital interventions. If we select, for example, some usual clinical objectives that are often monitored as the patient adherence, how can we translate it, and what kind of knowledge is required to be able to define, design, and implement such concept of patient adherence in the digital health? Another example is in the research space. Are the clinical trials today, as they are defined, suitable for the digital and AI evidence extractions? Or should we rethink their clinical trial instead of adapting our current process and making a sort of faucet fit there? If we take the example of mental health, where a lot has been done in the technical field in recent years, And some nice results are now being strongly and quickly adopted in the clinical fields. How can we implement, for example, a randomized clinical trials there? Do we need new rules like a digital placebo? How to define it, who to define it, and how to reach the community adoption of these new standards? This takes us to the necessity of building a comprehensive new set of competences linked to the domain that will equip the variety of participants and stakeholders in the digital health and AI with the necessary knowledge and know-how for advancing the adoption of the digital transformation, while being able to answer to these questions, resolve these issues, and set up a new and well-established foundation to help in faster, better, and holistic adoptions of digital health and digital transformation in healthcare. We are today at the frontier of the mass adoption of new tools, and we need to be prepared for it. A competency framework today is an essential and important step, and it should be considered as the blueprint that is needed today towards the building of an effective and user-centered capacity building in the healthcare workforce for an effective digital transformations and the rise of digital health as a unified domain. At IDER, with the collaboration with WHO, we are building on this creative way of building the transdisciplinary, collaborative, and practical capacity development, but also competency framework. Our approach jointly with WHO is very cohesive approach where the human and the human capacity is placed at the center. That because we believe that we need to listen to the transdisciplinary stakeholders from different settings with different background in different contexts and with variety of needs. The transformation and the digital transformation should be global or will not happen. And the global coverage with the ambition not to leave anyone behind in the uptake of this transformative endeavor. And this should be done with a very strong and very unified collaborative effort altogether. So thanks again for this opportunity, and hopefully we'll be able to collaborate soon all together around this capacity building. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mehdi, for that presentation. And thank you so much for being open to collaborate with actors from all over the world. We hear your message and we'll make sure that we hold you to it. Next, we'd like to, my pleasure to welcome another colleague and good friend, Mr. Derek Munene, who's unit head at WHO's Digital Health and Innovation Department's Unit for Collaboration and Capacity Building. Derek, over to you. Derek, just so you know, we are not able to hear you at the moment.
My apologies. Thank you so much, Huguette, for your kind introductions. And thank you so much, distinguished speakers that have spoken before me. I would like to greet the viewers that have joined us today. Once again, thanking everybody that has joined us to listen to this important session where we're discussing how we actually create an enabling environment for a future-proof health workforce that is fit for purpose and that practices health service delivery in the digital age. The short highlight presentation I'll be making unpackages WHO's work in this particular area within the context of the global strategy on digital health. And before I go into looking at the global strategy of digital health, I want to just pause to share the storyline from based on where we're coming from, where we are and where we're heading. It is common knowledge that about 17 years ago, our member states gave WHO the mandate to introduce ICTs in health with that transformative resolution of 2005 that called upon WHO to support member states in integrating ICTs in health. And we used to call that field of work e-health back then. A lot has taken place since then, including a number of complementary resolutions, such as what we saw in 2013, when member states realizing the mushrooming of different solutions for e-health recognized the issue around interoperability and data exchange. And so we saw a complementary resolution in 2013. Another resolution that we saw that complemented WHO's work in light of the industrial revolution, the fourth industrial revolution, was the digital health resolution of 2018 that was also associated with a number of actions that were taking place globally, including the digital health donor principles that were focused on supporting member states based upon the national strategies, the UN Secretary General's Roadmap for Digital Cooperation, and other similar initiatives. This particular resolution of 2018 was quite instrumental in enabling WHO to introduce within its work frontier technologies and other emerging areas of technologies, including blockchain and artificial intelligence. In between has been the production of a number of guides, including what we refer to as the Digital Investment and Implementation Guide, the Digital Health Platform Handbook, and other related instruments, such as the National eHealth Toolkit, that are aimed at supporting our member states achieve the transformation of the health sector that we are calling them to attend to. In recent times, in 2020, our member states put together the first approach, we call it a Global Digital Health Strategy, that consolidates the different aspirations into a framework, a strategy that is based upon 4 objectives intended to fast track the transformation of the health sector. And all this is intended to fast track the achievement of universal health coverage, as has been mentioned by the previous speakers. The global strategy on digital health itself sits on 4 principles, firstly being fostering collaboration at all the 3 levels of the organization, globally, regionally, and in countries, but at the same time recognizing that the transformation of the health sector is not WHO's responsibilities alone, nor is it the Ministries of Health's responsibility. There are actors that this particular objective recognizes, which are critical towards attaining this transformation that we're seeking. Second objective, consistent with the 2018 principles of digital development, focuses on using national strategies as an entry point, really building the needed capacity amongst member states for them to achieve the transformation using national strategies. Third objective is focused on governance, making sure that the member states themselves are leading the transformation, orchestrating partnerships, and engaging with the necessary actors to achieve that transformation. Last objective is really focused on putting people first. And this is where we see the fast tracking of universal health coverage that we've spoken about. There are a number of programs or projects and activities that each of these objectives are associated with. And as a matter of fact, next year, we'll be reaching what we would refer to as a short term, whereby we'll be taking stock of the actions that are mentioned in the global strategy on digital health. Specific to the work of competencies and competency frameworks and the concept around building this enabling environment for the health workforce, we are in the process with our partners, including IDEA, IntraHealth, and others, including our UN partners. We're in the process of putting together a competency framework that demonstrates the necessary knowledge, skills, and attitudes to really ensure that we have a capable health workforce that is able to consume and use the different digital technologies that are being deployed in the countries. And this particular framework begins with identifying the fact that a number of engagements have already taken place in terms of looking at existing evidence around the competencies expected of health workers in terms of the knowledge, skills, and capabilities of the cadres. And so WHO recognizes that significant work has actually taken place in this area. And with this is an inclusion of one of the competency frameworks that were developed in the African region, targeted at those individuals at the national level whose responsibility it is to fast track the implementation of national strategies. This particular competency framework was built around one of the frameworks in the National eHealth Toolkit that has 7 pillars, and one of those pillars speaks to the competencies needed for the health workforce. When we say national transformation of the health sector, we're really speaking about 7 pillars. And these pillars themselves are equally important. Over the past 17 years of the digital transformation that we've been pursuing, it is widely recognized that the health workforce capacities themselves have been neglected. We've made tremendous progress in terms of fast-tracking digital solutions, work around interoperability, investments in digital health. But what's been neglected is building this capable health workforce that is able to keep the pace with the emerging technologies that exist. The global strategy on digital health itself, with its 4 pillars, has elements that take us forward in the implementation of the health workforce agenda. And these particular actions itemized in the annex of the Global Digital Health Strategy, speak to a number of pillars that the speakers that have spoken before me have addressed, including the issue around putting together frameworks for capacity building and training, methodologies, tools, networks, repositories that are accessible by member states in such a way that each of the cadres in our member states has an appropriate learning and training environment. At WHO, working with our Health Workforce Department, we are strengthening our engagement with the WHO Academy, including the academy that is hosted at our sister agency, the ITV. In the second objective there, we're addressing the need to develop relevant norms and standards. In this particular case, relevant norms and standards around competencies of health workers, the individuals whose responsibility it is to use digital solutions in service delivery. Within the second objective lies the work of the competency frameworks that WHO and its partners is pursuing. The third objective is broad. It's around governance. And where capacity building lies in this objective is around building these necessary courses, learning modalities to build the capacities of our government actors, the civil service actors, in transforming, driving the transformation that we're seeking for digital health. And lastly, the people-centeredness, the people-centricity objective is concerned about making sure that we're building for the future. His Excellency Dr. Banda addressed this aspect when he talked about making sure that governments have the appropriate modalities of making sure that health workers have the digital exposure in training so that when they leave training, they are in the field possessing the necessary competencies needed for them to drive the transformation agenda. So the four objectives each have an element of capacity building, including the competency framework agenda. I'd like to go towards the conclusion of my highlight presentation by really speaking to the approach that we're taking. We have recognized the actors, the four main actors of the health system that are targeted for this competency framework. Right at the top are policymakers whose responsibilities it is to make decisions in countries for the transformation we're looking for. Below that are the planners, individuals whose responsibility it is to design national strategies. Below that are the actual users of digital solutions. We call them here practitioners, whose responsibility it is to use digital solutions. And lastly, but by all means not the least, are the people themselves. And we recognize that in the age of COVID, we have seen several patient-facing digital solutions that require patients to engage with in a manner that is digital, such as virtual health and virtual care. And what this last layer intends to do is to ensure that the different individuals have the necessary skills to access health services digitally. Around that, of course, is the whole issue of ICT literacy and contextualization of this literacy as appropriate. I'd like to also stress that the WHO product, the competency framework, is intended to be a platform by which we curate courses, a platform by which we create repositories of learning aligned to the competency framework itself. And one of the learning products that we've been promoting, the Digital Health Planning National Systems for Planners, has been a case study for WHO, an instrument of deployment that seeks to address the knowledge, skills, and attitudes of national planners of digital health systems. I'd like to pause by highlighting the fact that this is an iterative process that we are undertaking, landscaping development, and finally we'll be disseminating the competency framework to member states once we have finalized its production. My conclusion is simple. As Dr. Banda, His Excellency, mentioned, together with our director, Dr. Alain Labrique, and Dr. Mende, and others, including Onyema, the transformation that we're looking for the health sector requires that we leave no one behind. And that means leaving no health worker without the necessary competencies for digital health. All health workers must be equipped in such a way that they're keeping pace with the transformation that we're looking for and that we're pursuing. With this, I would like to hand over the floor back to Get. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Derek, for that very enriching context. And it's so good to see the progress that's been made over the years. And with the opening remarks today, we know that we're in good hands and that progress will continue to advance. I'd like to thank all of our speakers, starting with Dr. Alain Labrique, Dr. Onyema, His Excellency Dr. Kwame Banda, Dr. Merin Sene, and once again, Mr. Derek Munene. Now I'd like to hand it over to my co-moderator, Ms. Alice Liu, who will moderate the next part of the program. Over to you, Alice.
Hello and welcome, everyone. We know that there's been a little bit of a struggle connecting, so we, just as a reminder to people, this session is being recorded, and we are happy to share this with all who are interested but not able to join. So we are moving into the next portion of our agenda, where we will get a bit into the specifics of the activities that you've been hearing about. We have a group of speakers coming up next. I will quickly read through the list. Dennis Green will talk about what competency frameworks are. He is a consultant, an expert in developing competency frameworks in a number of sectors, not just in the health sector. Next on our agenda will be Jody Liss from InterHealth. She is a senior advisor and has been working in the digital learning and development sectors for over 20 years. And so again, very close friend of many of us here on the panel. Followed by a presentation by Dr. Louise Schaper. She was unavailable, but she has shared a video. So we're going to play a video. She is the CEO of the Australasian Institute of Digital Health. Followed by Dr. Tagreed Justinia from Saudi Arabia's Ministry of National Guard Health Affairs. She'll talk about the Riyadh Declaration and the recommendations that came from it. So with no further ado, let me turn it over to Dennis Green.
Great, thanks. Thanks, Alice. I'm going to share my presentation here, and I'm just going to talk very quickly about competency frameworks in general on a broad perspective, and then that's going to lead into the rest of the panel talking more specifically about the work that's going on. Competency frameworks at their highest level are really just hold on, I lost my. They are. At the highest level, they're really just building blocks that include the knowledge, skills, attributes, and activities required for individuals or groups of individuals, and are usually presented in the context of an occupation or a workforce sector. So for this work, we're looking at the entire population, as Derek was just showing on his slide, all the way from policymakers to the general population, and really trying to capture what's involved with the competencies people need as we make a transformation to digital health. In competency frameworks, we're generally capturing two types of information. We're capturing the competencies, which are knowledge, skills, attributes that are required for people to complete specific activities, and those are usually described in terms of observable behaviors or performance criteria, which we can measure. And the activities themselves, which are just generally described in terms of processes, tasks, and subtasks, which make up activities, and then linked to the competencies that are required to complete them. And why that's important is, we need to separate what's required for people in the different things they do, and also within the competencies, how those competencies change depending on the activity and the context in which people are doing different things related to digital health. There's been a lot of talk already about competencies as being building blocks, and competency frameworks are really just a collection of aggregated pieces of knowledge, skills, attributes, usually with a descriptive statement and some performance criteria, and often with clarity around context using key terms and definitions, which are clarified into each competency descriptor within a competency framework. So each of the competencies will have those elements in it, and be organized in a fashion that makes sense for the audience, and in a way that people can read and understand and interpret the information. I talked a little bit off the top about the relationship between sort of competencies, activities, and how that manifests into the needs of the workforce. And that's a lot of what's involved in developing the competency framework. The competency framework itself will have a groups of competencies that are organized into domains or subdomains based on the stakeholder group and what seems most important for that particular framework. But it's also very important that we're linking the competencies to the activities of people doing. So we spend time identifying the activities that people are doing. In this case, the activities related to digital health that the various actors in the system are doing, conducting, or potentially doing in the future, and making the connections between what the competencies are that are required for each of those activities. Where that becomes important is we start looking at how we're using that to support the development of the health workforce. People will have roles. There might be their job role, their job description, and the things that they're doing, which again rely on the competencies, but also relate to the certain activities. So by knowing what activities people are doing in work or in another context, we know what competencies they need, and that becomes an aggregate that helps us define their role and their position. We did talk a couple of times already today about the typical development cycle and that it is an iterative process. So we do go through these discovery, planning, and development phases and go into validation and implementation. And once frameworks are mature, they go into an evaluation and a sustainability phase. But we always start with what people are doing and working backwards. So in that process, very important for us to make sure we've got a broad stakeholder group. And as you can, even just by looking at the panel, I think we've got representatives from every continent except Antarctica here today, which is really talks to the global collaboration that's going on in this space. So that's all I'm going to mention today. And then I'm going to now hand it over back to Alice, and I think Jody Liss is going to talk a little bit more about the work that we've specifically been doing with the working group.
Thank you so much, Dennis. As you can see, there's actually quite a methodology to this, which has been, as I've been working with Dennis and Jody over not just this past year, but even prior. It's just really nice to see that there is a way to organize all the efforts that we are all making in capacity development and development training and workshops and other kinds of learning experiences. So thank you very much, Dennis. I'll turn it over to Jody Liss, who is co-leading the Competency Framework Working Group that IDARE and WHO have formed. Just maybe just a quick mention that this is anyone who is interested in this and wants to join the working group. I think we can share some information somehow later. And I would also like to mention that there will be a call for experts coming from WHO in the coming weeks as part of the review process. So we can also address more of that later in the Q&A. With that, let me turn it over to Jody.
Great, thank you so much, Alice. It's such a pleasure to be here to be able to talk more in depth about the work that we're doing around building this digital health competency framework. As you've heard, it's a collaboration between WHO and IDARE, as well as many other organizations that are participating and contributing. So what I'm going to do right now is build upon what Dennis and Derek have started to talk about in regards to the competency framework and be a little bit more specific about how we're actually making this all happen. So the first thing, just to reiterate what Derek already spoke about, is who is the audience? That's usually the first question that we get in regards to the competency framework. Well, who's it for? And as Derek previously described, it is for the entire health workforce. It's for anybody, including the decision makers who are looking at investments. It's for people who are planning and doing the IT work. It's for all the clinicians who are integrating digital health. In addition, it's for the people and the populations for accessing their records and being able to communicate with the health workers. So we are trying to contribute and build upon expertise in using technology for the entire population. And what are the competency frameworks used for? This is also something that Dennis started touching upon and want to continue to build on. We often hear about using competencies for building education courses and our training and for our learning. What skills are we needed? What do we want them to be able to do at the end of a lesson? But additionally, the competency frameworks are being used also for workforce development, as Dennis described, in terms of the roles and the activities and what people should be on their jobs. So for job descriptions, what are you looking for in somebody in a job? For performance evaluation, how do you evaluate their performance? What skills do they not yet have but they need? So it's being used in workforce development. Competency frameworks can also be used for accreditation. So what are those competencies people need to get that accreditation for credentialing? What do they need to be assessed upon? Additionally, as we know, how the use of technology keeps growing, but yet governments may not have some of these job roles already in their policies and their strategies and in their different ministries. So these competencies can also be able to be used to develop occupation roles and what are those descriptions and used along those ways. So competencies are used in all these different ways. And as we develop the competency framework, we will be promoting all of these different ways to use it. As Alice just mentioned, we have this working group. We currently have about 60 members globally. And as Dennis said, it's a collaboration across the world. We have people from different sectors, from a range of. And as Alice said, we'll welcome everybody because this is to be for our community, for everybody. So we look forward to hopefully convening more with you and for your contributions, because you all are the experts in this and we need all the help to make sure that it meets the needs of everybody. And as Dennis started to talk about as well, in regards to how we put together this competency framework, this is our timeline that we've been using to develop the framework. We put together that vision and scope, again, that Dennis mentioned in terms of where are we going? What do we want to be able to achieve? Now we're currently looking at all these different resources that Derek mentioned and Dennis talked about in terms of trying to discover what are those competencies, what are those domains for the competencies, or subdomains or definitions. So we're currently in the process of reviewing all that and brainstorming and putting our ideas together of what should be in this competency framework. And then the ultimate goal, again, as Derek had mentioned, it's part of the WHO digital health strategy, and we will be putting together a draft for next year's at the World Health Assembly and have that available. Some of these things, again, have already been mentioned, but wanted to reiterate that we are using all the available resources and materials that have been produced, and so much effort has been put into it. And starting from using different competency frameworks that already exist. In the upper right-hand corner is the one that Derek mentioned from Afro. Upper left-hand corner is the one that IDEAR worked on. Derek also mentioned the course, the Planning National Systems. So what are those skills that people are wanting to learn right now? We need to look at the different courses and find out, okay, are those skills included in the framework? Looking at the toolkit, as well as all the different competency frameworks that currently exist, and wanted to make sure that we're doing our homework and our research to review that. So from there, taking these as all reference and materials, we're doing our own brainstorming right now. Within the working group, we're looking at all the different roles that have been mentioned and what are those knowledge, skills, attitudes, behavior, tasks, and activities that people do. And so we're really outlining all of those different types of behaviors and skills that people are doing. And then the idea is going to start to be able to group them into the different domains and subdomains. So we're taking all the knowledge from people's expertise, as well as all these different resources, and putting them together to be able to develop our framework. And so putting it together, this is a very, very, very simple version of it, but we want to have our different domain areas. And we would have those, we would have the subdomain areas. So what are those different areas under each of those main categories, to be a little bit more specific? And then we would outline what those different definitions are. Again, as Dennis described in his slides of what are they can be that people are to be able to do. We would also have the levels of proficiencies, because going back to the roles that have been previously described, the different roles are going to have different levels of proficiency. Additionally, all the roles may not do all of the different competencies. Something that a policymaker does is not going to be the same thing as a clinician does, or something that the population may need. But the idea is to create an interactive system for people to be able to search and to be able to find what those competencies are for those specific roles that can be used in those different ways that I've mentioned as well. Additionally, as Derek had said, to align these different competencies with the courses. And ideally, we want the countries to be able to adapt these to meet their needs. And so again, putting it all together, the idea behind building the competency framework is to ensure that there's impact, being able to use them in all these different ways, that health workers get the skills they need, and that we develop our health systems in the best way we know how we can. So thank you for letting me share about the competency framework, and we welcome everybody's impact into it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jody. And we are, as you have seen, it's a very much a methodical process, but it's a very thoughtful process. But it will have multiple uses and pay off in so many different ways. And part of our goal in this collaboration and working with WHO and with so many partners is that if we can bring uses as a form, as a method for alignment about the core critical skills, knowledge, attributes, activities, then we can create a standard of performance, right? What does it mean to be proficient in as a digital health professional, or using digital health tools and solutions, or developing policy about using digital health and data and AI? If we can come to some common ground on these critical skills, knowledge, and areas, we will bring the profession up to a whole new level and have a common understanding of how to be successful. And hopefully that upskilling and agreement on the right skills and knowledge will lead to better implementations, more useful, user-friendly implementations, and ultimately have the impact on the health system that we're all looking for, right? The increased performance of efficiencies, and as well as more effective members of the health workforce. So with that, we are going to turn to a video by Dr. Louise Schaper, the CEO of the Australasian Institute of Digital Health. She's sends her apologies that she was not able to make it at this time. And let's see if we can roll tape, as they used to say.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me at this really important event. My name is Louise Schaper, and I'm the CEO of the Australasian Institute of Digital Health. Building digital health workforce capability is not just what we do at the Institute, but it's what I'm personally incredibly passionate about. So I'll take you on a quick tour of some of the things we're doing related to competencies and building capability in the workforce. So yes, we are Australia's peak body for digital health and health informatics, and we've been around for about 30 years. We work collaboratively across the sector with technology firms, with industry, with hospitals and health services, with government, with international players, and importantly on the workforce agenda, we work collaboratively with medical and clinical peak bodies, associations, and colleges as well. So one of the reasons that we think digital health workforce is just so critically important is because it's not just the way that we practice healthcare, which is changing and needs to change, but it's also that cultural and behavioural shift that is progressing as well, sometimes at pace as well, others not so fast, but there is a massive behavioural and cultural shift happening towards a better consumer and patient experience enabled by digital health. So if we're going to do that successfully, we need to make sure that we have consistency in language and approach, and standards are really important. Now, this is the agenda that basically picks up everything that we do in digital health workforce. So it's about setting the standards, defining those digital professional practice standards for healthcare workforce. Competencies fall into that of work, of course, credentialing, and making sure people have the recognition that they're special, that they know lots of really important things about informatics and digital health, and providing learning and development resources and connecting the people who need those resources with the people who are offering them. And actually looking at it, we look at it very much as a pragmatic workforce perspective rather than from an education perspective. Our focus is very much on two parts of the healthcare workforce. So there's the health informatics and digital health specialists and what they need, but then there's everybody else. So, I like to think of the fact of, the nurse who doesn't want to be an informatician or a digital health specialist, but just wants to be the very best nurse that he can be. So what does he need to know about digital health to be the very best, to practice and be the very best nurse that he can be in 2022? I'm not going to touch on this, but you'll get the slides later. There's a bunch of stuff that we are doing and we're basically running a national program. So you'll see there's a whole bunch of initiatives that we are doing right now that is linked back to healthcare trends and healthcare workforce trends as well. So you can have these slides afterwards. Competency frameworks. So this is the second edition of the Australasian Health Informatics Competency Framework. As you can see, it is made up of 6 domains. And actually, I'll just move myself out of the way so you can see the last one being health sciences. This was published earlier this year. The first edition was published about 10 years ago. There's more detail here about there's 53 different competencies across those 6 domains. We also have built a national nursing and midwifery digital health capability framework, and that is being rolled out throughout Australia. And pretty coolly, Ireland picked it up as well. So Ireland and Northern Ireland, that all Ireland perspective, have actually taken some of the work that we have done in Australia, modified it for the Irish context. And now they have actually built an all Ireland digital capability framework for health and social care. So I just wanted to call them out, and we partner with them, a great group of people. So what we're up to now in terms of competency frameworks is that we are building, it won't look like this is very much a draft, but we are building a capability framework, not a competency framework, but a capability framework, which will be for all of those professions that work in healthcare that aren't specialists in informatics and digital health. So you might be a technology person, be on the IT help desk, you might be a health information manager, an executive, a clinician potentially, or a technology specialist. So again, for you to be the very best professional that you can be in your role as healthcare goes through these changes, what do you need to know about digital health? And so we're building a single framework that will be cross-discipline specific, and that's really cool. The other thing I just wanted to touch on in my last minute was just what's critically important. I'd encourage all countries, and I know WHO is looking at this as well, that it's the competency and the capability frameworks are great and we really need them. And I applaud the work that WHO is doing in this space. But it's also important, having a great document that sits on a cyber shelf gathering cyber dust that no one uses is not that helpful to anyone. So it's really important that we have clear ideas about why we're doing this work, who is the target audience, and how will they use these things? How will they find them valuable? So that's some of the things that we're doing in terms of career pathways and mapping, building resources for organizations and for workforces as a whole, not just for individuals. We already have a certification program in Australia that's been running for almost 10 years now that uses a competency framework as the rigor behind it. And we're currently we're in the process of building a clinical informatics fellowship. All of these things will link back to, what do you need to know? Well, you go back to the competency framework and that shows you what you need to know. And there's some information there on our certification program. It's a fabulous piece of work that is happening. And one of the other things I'd just quickly share is that I'm leading an effort across the world, actually, to build a global recognition program for digital health and informatics expertise. So the idea being, if you're in, let's say, Ireland, and you're recognised as being a professional in that space in informatics and digital health, well, if you move to Australia, you shouldn't have to start from scratch. We should be able to recognise your credentials that you've earned in Ireland and have them recognised here, and vice versa. So that's a really important project that we're just kicking off. Anyone who's interested, please feel free to contact me. But it's a very collaborative approach, and what we're doing is harnessing and promoting the international efforts that are happening, and we're just looking at bringing them all together at a global effort. So thanks again for having me, and great event, WHO. Talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.
Well, that was a wonderful talk, and she mentioned some things that we kind of skipped over on some of our earlier presentations. That goal of what I call it global credential interoperability, the idea that you should be able to, let's say, if you're certified as a digital health professional in South Africa, then it will count if you move to Kenya, and so on and so forth. So yeah, very excited to hear about her work. Next up is Dr. Tagreed Justinia. She's the Regional Director for IT Services, Technology and Health Informatics, and the King Saud bin Abdulaziz University for Health Sciences and the Ministry of National Guard Health Affairs. So Dr. Justinia, over to you.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you for the introduction. And I'm very happy that I was invited to share with you today our experience from Saudi Arabia. So can you see my slides?
Yes, we see them. Thank you.
All right. So again, I'm with the Ministry of National Guard Health Affairs in Saudi Arabia. And His Excellency Dr. Bandar at the opening mentioned the Riyadh Declaration. So just to elaborate a little bit and explain what it is. It was formulated, it's a publication, it was published in the Lancet. And it was formulated during the Riyadh Global Digital Health Summit, which was held in 2020. And that was one of the events, associated events of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia's G20 presidency. So in the year 20, we had the presidency for the G20. And resulting in that publication and from the event, there were 9 recommendations. I won't read them out, but this the article is available online. You can read the whole article. It's short, and this is a summary of the 9 recommendations. What we did, we held a joint event with the WHO back in June. It was called Moving Digital Health Policy into Action. And it was held the 6th and 7th of June this year. What we did is we did an alignment between some of the recommendations of the Riyadh Declaration and the WHO Global Strategy on Digital Health that Dr. Labrik mentioned in the opening, and also Derek elaborated on as well. So we aligned between we found the alignment between both. We took 3. So 3 points. We couldn't, discuss everything, but in the event, we developed 3 work streams. The first work stream was Digital Health Workforce Competency Framework, and the alignment is from the WHO Global Strategy on Digital Health. One of the objectives is capacity building activities. So one of the strategy objectives is digital health literacy skills and gender equity and health equity approaches strengthened. And in the Riyadh Declaration, one of the 9 points was to cultivate, one of the 9 recommendations was to cultivate a health and care workforce with the knowledge, skills, and training in data and digital technologies that address the health challenges. So there were 3 work streams. The other one was about misinformation, disinformation, and the infodemic. And again, it's something that's aligned between the WHO Global Strategy on Digital Health and the Riyadh Declaration. The last work stream was establishing digital health services at scale, and we specifically talked about vaccine credentials. So going back to the first work stream, which was digital health workforce competency framework. That session had some specific objectives. How can we work with industry, social media companies? How can we capture interventions that weren't carried out? And the specific highlights or what takeaways from that session were which capacity building areas do we need to prioritize from the local, regional, and global perspectives? How can we create internationally recognized standards and qualifications? And Dr. Louise just mentioned, some things about that in her talk before this. How to get this done on an international level, and how can we make local competency frameworks international? So there are a lot of local competency frameworks, but how can we work together to bring these competencies to fruition on a national level? These are the main takeaways from that one work stream. For example, so just to talk about one of the frameworks in the region, in the Gulf Cooperation Council, there's a group of people working on the GCC Task Force on Digital Health Workforce Development. And one of their objectives is to design a GCC specific maturity model for measuring and benchmarking sustainability of the digital health workforce. And so as well, so there's work being done in the region as well for building competencies. And the takeaway is how can we get all these efforts from different regions, different countries to work on an international level. For the event in general, some of the highlights of the event in general were how can the digital health issues have global impact, and the recommendations that kept coming up all throughout was to build coalitions from different countries, and trying to, like Dr. Louise said, have a hub or a stabilizing anchor to get these pushed through. There were talks about models, blueprints for global collaborations, how to establish, how to get these global collaborations working, and moving local recommendations, moving local guidelines, local policies into true global action by creating regular meetings such as this event, regular summits and events from different members of the international community. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Thank you so much, Dr. Justinia. It's exciting to see how much effort has been going on in Saudi Arabia. And I'm just really excited to see the activity there in Australia, as everyone recognizes there's a lot of really strong local efforts that we can leverage internationally, leverage across different countries. And that is the hope with these competency frameworks, that then countries can adopt and adapt it to their own needs, use it to help develop their organization. And so I think we're going to move to the next session and hear a few examples of how in a couple of different specific cases in 2 different countries, how they are applying the concept of competency frameworks or seeing the need for competency frameworks as they go about their capacity development. So let me turn it over to our next 2 speakers. The first one up is Innocent Chiboma. He's a principal ICT officer in the Ministry of Health in Zambia. Our second speaker will be Dr. Stefan Hartel. He's the president of the academic committee at the Center for National Health Information Systems, the National Center for Health Information Systems, or CENS for short, in Chile. So Innocent, would you like to go first?
Hello, everyone, and good afternoon. My name is Innocent Chiboma, as Alice has said, Principal ICT Officer at Ministry of Health in Zambia. And we're thankful that we have been given an opportunity to talk about our experience in the country. as concerning competency frameworks and basically workforce development. Thank you, WHO, and thank you, IDEA, for organizing this. So going into how we started out as a country, when we developed our EHR, our first EHR in the country, we started out by training everyone in a kind of a physical classroom format. And of course, that worked out in the first place when we had fewer people. And and going forward, we started decentralizing the trainings to the level that we had more provincial and facility-based trainers doing those trainings. But we came to a realization sooner than later that, in fact, we were doing like a very, very detailed training for everyone and focused mainly on the software. But we realized that different people have got different needs, and different cadres have got different needs, and different they have different skills which they need to use a digital health tool like an EHR. And so we started trying to segment the trainings into focusing on people's area of work. And so somehow that has led us to realize how that it's important for us to have a competence framework for this kind of thing. We also were doing more, we started doing more on-the-job training, kind of trainings for health facility workers, and also realized that we also needed to do some kind of competency tests to certify people that they're actually able to use the tool. Unlike just having them in a meeting and telling them about the software and then leaving them to do it by themselves. So we realized that there's some of these things that we needed to add and to standardize across the country for us to be able to have a better competencies out there. And in this regard, I think looking at what WHO and IDEA are doing, and looking at the TWG, we've realized that this is really the way to go for us to be able to standardize our competencies, and also to make sure that like probably somebody else on the call mentioned that we needed to interoperate the competencies across countries, because the skills that are developed in one country should be able to be useful in another place. And so we realized that the frameworks that we're developing will help us to fill some of the gaps that we see, because I think I mentioned earlier that we would have problems where you train in this health facility, and then somebody moves to another place, and then they are unable to do certain things, and then you're unable to really say that it's this skill that you need when you want to replace this person. It's this skill and the other, and to have the fact that that those same skills can actually be documented somewhere and actually even put in somebody's job description. So these are some of the things that we believe that the competency framework will help us with. We can be able to actually document and actually prescribe that we are looking for such and such a skill to fill this position. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, across the roles, from top, from management, from practitioner, everybody needs their own kind of competency for them to be for them to be useful in the digital health space. Probably if there are questions, I could be able to answer that. I'm mindful of my time because I could go on forever.
Well, thank you so much, Innocent. I know it's very exciting, given the long history of the electronic health record system in Zambia, I think 20 plus years or so, that there's a lot of experience you bring. And just to echo what you said about taking these frameworks, and something that Dr. Louise Schaper also said, taking these frameworks, our intent is not to just put out another document that just sits on a website on a shelf and doesn't get picked up. There are some very interesting interactive platforms we've seen, and we hope that this will be a global good, be open source, and that if it's in an interactive platform, then that's easy for another, whether it's an organization or it's a Ministry of Health, for the whole country, can take it and tweak it much more easily than rewriting a big document. So anyway, I know we are short on time, so I just wanted to get that point in. Let me turn it over now to Dr. Stefan Hartel. Great, we can see it. We can see your presentation.
You can see it, you can see me, you can hear me. So thank you very much, Alice, and also Innocent for your talk, and everybody else. It was just great. I feel like at home when I hear all the excellent approaches you have designed. So I try to give you a short view of how we are working in the Chilean competency framework to foster everything that we have heard actually before. And the center of our interest is, as also we have heard before, that concept of the plentiful life, which I take as a lossless compression of the 17 sustainable development goals that we have been also seen in Derek's talk. So in this context, I present two entities in Chile that we have built to foster competencies in digital health and to bring these beautiful competencies to the daily practice, which we all know to make them useful is a long and slowly road. So Chile, just to put you into perspective, is a country with approximately 20 million people, 29 health services, 70%, more than 70% are in the public health sector. And we have about 2,000 rural and family health centers, 200 hospitals of different complexity. So to have digital health benefit people in mega cities like Santiago, but also people in remote regions like Patagonia is our task. And our focus is on communication. And if the communication is digital, it's good. If it has to be personal and human, it's also good. But we have to know when to apply what. And that's who saves us, but to be competent in taking decisions. With the entities we are forming, especially since we've also been organizing events like Connectatons on a regional level in Latin America, and Derek was in Santiago with us at the beginning of the year, so he could give his talk and what WHO is doing on competencies and digital health in the Chilean community, in the Latin American community. So that feels really good to have people from the WHO present, which is important. So the National Center for Health Information System, which Alice mentioned, was built by 5 universities in Chile in 2017. We have also members from the private sector, and we are looking to close the sectorial gaps, connecting the public and the private health care providers with the expertise in health IT, what we are building. And we have 4 areas: innovation, quality, interoperability, and human capital. And due to the time I have, I can only talk to you about the human capital, what we have been working. And we designed our reference competency model for health information systems from scratch in 2017, because we felt that none of the models that were existing to date was really satisfying what the people in Chile needed. So we gathered a lot of people for 2 years. And in 2019, we published our first version with 8 domains, more than 30 competencies, more than 100 sub-competencies. And that was our public good then to build, until now, 12 job profiles. And Sense now is offering consulting. We build training courses, and we certificate programs from other stakeholders so that they are fulfilling the competencies that have been defined. What our dream is to build a national qualification framework in digital health step by step. The other important actor that was born this year is the State University Network for Digital Health that combines 13 universities along the country, from Arica in the north to Magallanes in the south. And we have a major goal to develop a governance oriented to strengthen and install competencies, capacities and actions now for use cases in digital health and also for student mental health. So this is our aim. Connecting, again, public and private entities, and you might recognize some of our international partners that are collaborating. So in the end of this year, we will finish a diagnosis of all the curricula existing in the Chilean universities, state universities. Some results, 9 out of 13 of the universities have some selected competencies already included in different levels in their health curricula. That is good news. But only 4 in Chile have formation on the postgraduate level, with some selected competencies. And finally, we count only 4 institutions with academics that have a postgraduate training in the field. So this is giving you an idea of the gap we have to face. Yeah, but now with new friends and colleagues, we have really a nice number of people working towards 2030 to improve everything what we did so far. And we are now working to rebuild our competency model, also with what has been going on and you presented in the last years. So we have to put a new view on what we did 5 years ago, what happened post-pandemic, what happens with the patients and community, to start to listen more closely to what the people really need, to not to be too abstract and to focus on the users. And I think we have heard that before as well. So I close my presentation with happy bullet points and not so happy bullet points, maybe. So where are we and what comes next? As I said, we are redefining now our competency model to the next version. So this will be exciting. We are now working to have the job profiles inserted into the practice. That is a huge amount of work. So this is a decade or so, at least. We are still building events with friends, and everybody who wants to come to Chile in January is invited to join our Make Health Chile event with many regional partners also on the LATAM level. And then we have also a plan which we are developing right now with a state university network until 2030. So we are thinking in decades, and I think that is what is necessary. What is a step-by-step work, and I think all of you agree and know, is to have really the competencies inserted on the ground, usable, and pushing what we want to push, which is finally a better life. And finally, I think we know that we are not inventing anything new. I wanted to leave you with the idea of a Quechua people of Sumac Casuay, which means something like the plentiful life, which is on the left, and I think we all feel sort of at home. We are not perfect yet, as we see. We are young, we have deficits, but we need to find the tools that are just good for us at the point of development we are. So happy to join you, international community. Take us into account, invite us, we will invite you, and let's just share experiences and best practices and good practices as good as we can. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Stefan. And I think that's really intriguing how you did the analysis of the incorporation of digital health competencies in the academic curricula. That's where really we would think we would begin to see the most competencies. So I know we are very short on time. We are very apologetic about that. What we will do is share some contact info in the chat. For the WHO, it's digital health at who.int. It's fairly simple. And for IDAIR, it's contact at i-dair.org. And I think that will be also showing up in the audience chat, as I mentioned. So at the end of this, we have probably not said it enough that the goal is obviously to become better digital health professionals to serve people and patients better, to give them better care, more promptly, more accurately, a better diagnosis, and long-term care. So let me turn this over to Derek to give his closing thoughts.
Well, thank you very much, Alice, for moderating this particular session quite effectively. And also just to thank you, Get, for moderating the first session quite effectively. Also wanted to thank, the esteemed, panelists that participated to share their insights and wisdom in this area, and also to thank the viewers that joined us on this particular session. The key things that came out of this presentation are very important for us to move forward. When we say leave no one behind in terms of people, we also mean leave no one behind in terms of the health workforce by extension. So the patient's perspective or the health worker's perspective is one dimension, but the other dimension are those providers that are needed to provide the care digitally. So we say leave no one behind in two dimensions, the health workers plus also the people. As we march towards making sure greater availability, affordability, and also compatibility of digital health solutions, it is our objective as an organization to ensure that we march towards this transformation of digitalization using the 7 pillars of the eHealth Toolkit and with a special focus on the competency frameworks that have been discussed today. We're thankful for all the insights that have been provided, and it is indeed clear that now is the time to factor in the human side of things in the digital transformation of the health sector, as others have mentioned on this particular panel. From WHO, we'd like to thank everybody that has contributed to making this a successful event and looking forward to subsequent events that are yet to be organized on this particular topic. Thank you very much. Pleasant evening, morning and afternoon, wherever you are. Thank you so much.